Daniel stepped out of the old pickup truck and looked at the land in front of him. The sun was slowly rising behind the distant hills, spreading a warm golden color across the wide fields. The wooden fence was broken in many places. The barn roof had several gaps, and weeds covered almost every corner of the ground. Still, Daniel breathed in deeply and felt something inside him relax for the first time in many months. This ranch, even in its broken condition, felt like a fresh start. For years, Daniel had worked hard in different jobs, construction, farm work, and even managing equipment for a company in the city. Life had not been unkind, but it also hadn't given him anything to hold close. He lived alone, worked alone, and ended most days in silence. When a family friend told him about an old ranch for sale in a countryside town, he didn't think much of it at first. But something whispered to him, urging him to go see it. That single decision brought him here. The ranch came with its challenges, but Daniel had never been afraid of hard work. He pushed open the gate, which squeaked loudly, and walked toward the house. Dust covered the windows and the porch was weak under his feet. But he could imagine it clean, warm, and full of life. That picture alone gave him enough energy to take the first step. The first few days were full of cleaning. He removed broken boards, replaced old nails, swept dust that flew into the air like tiny clouds, and repaired the pipes. His clothes stayed dirty from morning to night, but he didn't mind. Every improvement, even a small one, felt like progress. For Daniel, progress meant hope. In the small town nearby, people soon noticed a stranger had moved into the old ranch. Many had assumed the place would stay empty forever. Some were curious. Some were impressed that someone had the courage to take on such a big task. Daniel didn't spend much time talking to anyone, but he greeted people kindly whenever he went to the general store for supplies. One morning, while buying wood from the local supply shop, he heard a soft voice behind him. "Excuse me, sir, do you know where the ranch tools section is?" Daniel turned and saw a woman holding a small list in her hand. She looked tired but gentle, and her clothes suggested she had been working since early morning. Before Daniel could speak, a little boy hiding behind her tugged at her sleeve, as if asking for attention. Daniel pointed to the right. "The tools are down that aisle." She smiled politely. "Thank you. I'm new to using tools. My son accidentally broke a small fence behind my house, and I'm trying to fix it myself." The boy peeked out. His big round eyes stared at Daniel with curiosity. Daniel nodded to him. "Hey there." The boy quickly hid again, and the woman laughed softly. "He's shy. But thank you again." Daniel nodded, not thinking much of the meeting, but something about the woman's tired eyes stayed in his mind. There was a quiet strength in her, and he respected that. The next few weeks were full of long hours of rebuilding. Daniel fixed the barn roof, one difficult plank at a time. He repaired the water system, cleared old bushes, and finally, after many days, the ranch began to look alive again. The neighbors driving by would sometimes slow down to see the progress. Some even waved at him. Daniel always waved back. One afternoon, as he was carrying wood boards to the back of the house, he heard footsteps approaching. He looked up and saw the same woman from the store walking toward him. The little boy was with her again, holding her hand tightly. "Hello again," she said with a small smile. "You're Daniel, right? The man who bought the ranch?" "Yes," he replied kindly. "And you're the one fixing your fence." She laughed softly. "Still fixing it. Very slowly. I'm Maria, and this is my son Leo." Leo looked at Daniel, then quickly hid behind his mother again. Daniel smiled. "Nice to meet you both." Maria looked at the half-built wall behind Daniel. "Your ranch is changing fast. It looks beautiful already." "Still a long way to go," Daniel said. "But it's getting there." Maria nodded. "I know how much work it takes to rebuild something. Even small tasks can feel big." Daniel noticed the meaning behind her words. Maybe she was talking about more than just fences. "Do you need any help with your fence?" he asked gently. She looked surprised. "Oh, I didn't want to bother you. You're already doing so much." "It's not a bother," Daniel replied. "If you want, I can stop by sometime and take a look." Maria hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "Thank you. That would mean a lot." Leo finally stepped out from behind her and looked at Daniel with wide eyes. Daniel gave him a small wave. And this time, the boy waved back. It was a tiny gesture, but Daniel felt something warm spread inside him. Over the next few days, Daniel found himself thinking about Maria and Leo more than he expected. Not in a romantic way, just a human way. He understood what it felt like to carry life's weight alone. Maybe that was why he felt connected to them, even if he barely knew them. One weekend morning, he walked over to their house. Leo's broken fence was indeed in bad shape. Daniel spent the next hour fixing it while Leo watched him closely, asking small questions with a shy voice. Maria made tea and thanked him repeatedly. Before he left, Leo tugged at Daniel's sleeve and whispered, "Thank you." Those two words touched Daniel deeply. He nodded, trying not to show how much they meant. Days passed, and Daniel returned to his routine of rebuilding the ranch. But the ranch no longer felt like the only thing in his life. He had met people who reminded him of warmth, connection, and purpose, things he thought he had lost. Each day, the ranch grew stronger. And so did Daniel. He didn't know yet, but the ranch he bought would not just rebuild his life. It would lead him towards something he had always desired deep inside: a family, a purpose, and a chance to become something he never thought he could be: a father. Daniel woke up earlier than usual the next morning, feeling a calm sense of purpose running through him. The sky was still dark, the air cool, and the fields around the ranch were covered in a soft layer of morning mist. As he stepped outside with a cup of hot tea, he looked across the land and felt something shift inside him. The ranch was no longer just a place to fix. It was slowly becoming a part of him. He had lived many years without meaningful connections, without people waiting for him or depending on him. But lately, his days felt different. Leo's tiny voice saying "thank you," and Maria's warm smile when he fixed their fence had stayed with him. He didn't know why those moments felt so important, but they did. By midday, Daniel was repairing a broken water line near the barn when he heard a familiar voice. "Daniel." He looked up and saw Leo running toward him, arms slightly open, eyes shining with excitement. Maria followed behind him, carrying a bag of food. Daniel wiped his hands and stood up. "We brought lunch," Maria said with a smile. "I thought, maybe you haven't eaten yet." Daniel glanced at the bag, surprised. "You didn't have to do that." "We wanted to," she replied softly. They sat on a wooden bench Daniel had built a week earlier. Maria unpacked freshly baked bread, boiled eggs, and fruits. It wasn't a fancy meal, but it felt special. Leo sat between them, watching Daniel with his usual quiet curiosity. "You really work hard, don't you?" Maria said, looking around the ranch. "It keeps me busy," Daniel said. Maria nodded. Sometimes being busy is the only thing that keeps a person going. Daniel understood those words more than she knew. Still, he didn't ask what she meant. He respected her silence, knowing everyone carried their own story. After lunch, Leo insisted on helping Daniel. The small boy copied his movements, pretending to lift heavy tools and checking the fence posts like a tiny inspector. Daniel found himself laughing softly at Leo's serious expressions. It felt natural, something he never thought he would feel around a child. Maria noticed it too. Standing a few steps away, she watched Daniel and Leo working side by side. Her eyes softened. For years, Leo had only known her love and effort. Seeing him look up to another adult in such a trusting way made her heart feel strangely full. When it was time for them to leave, Leo hesitated. "Can we come again?" he asked shyly. Daniel nodded. "Anytime." And from that day, they did come again. Some days they brought food. Other days they just came to say hello or watch Daniel work. Sometimes Maria helped clean small areas or picked vegetables growing near the fence. Leo collected small stones and built imaginary castles near the barn. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt what it meant to share space with people who cared, even in simple ways. One evening, as the sun was setting behind the hills, Maria stood quietly beside him. "Leo likes you," she said gently. Daniel looked at the boy playing with a small wooden horse near the porch. "He's a good kid. You make him feel safe," she continued. He hasn't known many people like that. Daniel didn't know what to say. No one had ever told him something like this before. The idea that he could bring comfort to someone else felt new and powerful. Maria looked down for a moment, then added, "I'm glad we met you." Daniel felt something warm spread inside him. He wanted to say he felt the same, but he stayed quiet, letting the moment settle peacefully between them. As days turned into weeks, their bond grew slowly, naturally. One afternoon, the sky grew dark with heavy clouds. A storm was coming. Daniel was closing the barn doors when he saw Maria and Leo running toward the ranch. "Daniel," Maria shouted. "We need help." Daniel rushed to them without a second thought. "What's wrong?" "The old tree near our house fell, and it broke part of the roof." "I didn't know who else to call," she said, breathing heavily. "Don't worry," Daniel said. "I'll come." Within minutes, they were at Maria's small house. The fallen tree had smashed a part of the roof, letting rainwater drip inside. Maria looked overwhelmed, Leo clinging to her side. Daniel didn't hesitate. He took off his jacket, picked up tools, and climbed up onto the damaged roof. Despite the harsh wind, the storm made the work difficult, but Daniel kept going. Under the cold rain, he covered the open area with strong boards and a waterproof sheet, making sure the house stayed safe until he could fix it properly the next day. When he finally climbed down, soaked and shivering, Maria looked at him with deep gratitude. "You always help us," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know how to thank you." Daniel shook his head. "You don't need to thank me." But Leo suddenly ran forward and hugged Daniel tightly around the waist. The hug was small, simple, but full of meaning. Daniel froze for a second. Surprised, slowly, he placed his hand on the boy's back. "You're safe now," he whispered gently. Maria saw the moment and felt her eyes grow wet. For years she had carried everything alone. Every worry, every burden, every fear of the future. But Daniel's presence felt like a shoulder she didn't have before. From that day, their connection grew even stronger. Leo began spending more time with Daniel, following him like a little shadow. He learned how to feed the chickens, how to carry small buckets of water, and how to gently brush the horses. Daniel taught him everything with patience and care, always watching to make sure he didn't get hurt. Some evenings, Maria sat on a wooden chair outside the house, while Daniel and Leo fixed small things together. She listened to their conversations, Leo's endless questions, and Daniel's calm, encouraging answers. She smiled every time Leo looked up to Daniel with admiration in his eyes. One afternoon, Maria stood beside Daniel as they watched Leo chasing butterflies near the fields. "You've given him something I couldn't," she said softly. Daniel turned to her slowly. "What do you mean?" "Leonardo never had someone to guide him," she replied. "Someone he could look up to. Someone who teaches him gently, without fear." Daniel looked at Leo again, then at the ranch behind them. "I didn't do anything special," he said quietly. "You did more than you know," Maria whispered. As weeks passed, the ranch began looking even better. The barn had a fresh coat of paint, the fences stood straight and strong, and the house felt warm and welcoming. Sometimes, Maria surprised Daniel with homemade bread or warm soup. Sometimes Leo brought him small drawings he made, usually pictures of Daniel standing near the barn. Daniel kept every drawing. One day, Leo handed Daniel a small piece of paper with a picture of 3 people standing in front of the ranch. 2 adults and 1 child. The child had a big smile, and the adults stood close on either side. Daniel looked at the drawing quietly. "That's us?" he asked. Leo nodded happily. "Yes. This is me, Mama. And you." Daniel felt his chest grow tight. He had no words, just emotion. Maria, standing nearby, watched him silently, knowing exactly how much the drawing meant. Slowly, Daniel folded the paper and put it safely in his pocket. "Thank you, Leo," he said gently. "I'll keep this forever." The connection was no longer small. It was deep. It was real. It was quietly changing all three of their lives. Daniel didn't fully understand it yet, but a part of him was already stepping into a new role, one he never expected to play. A guide, a protector, a steady presence, a father figure. And Maria, who had spent years guarding her heart, began to see Daniel as someone she could trust. Someone who brought safety into her life. Not through words, but through actions. Daniel's days were no longer filled with silence. Now he heard Leo's laughter, Maria's gentle voice, and the soft footsteps of people who cared for him. The ranch had become more than a place of repair. It had become the beginning of something beautiful, and soon, Daniel would realize that the bond growing between them was leading toward a future he never imagined. A future where he would no longer live alone but become a part of a small, loving family. The days on the ranch were peaceful, and Daniel had slowly grown used to the gentle rhythm of life. Every morning, he would wake before sunrise, feed the animals, check the fences, and work on whatever repairs were needed. But lately, a new part of his routine had taken shape, something he never planned but now cherished deeply. Leo. Almost every afternoon, the small boy would appear at the ranch with his curious eyes and quiet footsteps. Sometimes Maria came with him. Sometimes she sent him alone if she was busy, and every day, Daniel welcomed him like he had been waiting. Life felt lighter now. The ranch no longer felt like a lonely place. But just when everything seemed to be settling into a calm routine, life suddenly changed course, testing the strength of their bond. It started with a quiet knock on Daniel's door one rainy evening. Daniel opened the door to find Maria standing there, holding Leo close. Her face was pale, and her eyes were swollen like she had been crying. "Maria? What happened?" Daniel asked immediately. She hesitated, struggling to find words. Rain dripped from her clothes and hair. Leo clung to her leg, looking frightened. I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "Come inside," Daniel said without another thought. He guided them to the sofa and brought a warm blanket. Maria sat down slowly, hugging Leo tightly. Daniel crouched in front of them. Concern written across his face. Maria took a shaky breath. "I lost my job today." Daniel felt his heart drop. Maria had been working at a small shop in town, the only income she had to support Leo. "They said they can't afford extra workers anymore," she continued. "I tried to stay calm, but when I reached home, I didn't know what to do." Leo looked at her with wide, worried eyes. "Mama?" he whispered softly. Maria pulled him close. "It's okay, baby. I'm okay." But Daniel could tell she wasn't. She was scared in a way only a single mother would understand. Losing a job wasn't just about money. It was about survival. It was about keeping the house, feeding the child, and staying strong even when the world felt heavy. Daniel sat beside them. "Maria, listen. You're not alone. Whatever you need, I'm here." Maria looked at him, her eyes filling with emotion. "Daniel, you've already helped us so much. I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," Daniel said firmly. Silence settled around them for a moment. The rain tapped gently on the roof, filling the room with a soft sound. Finally, Maria spoke again. "I'll start looking for work tomorrow. I just didn't want Leo to see me upset." Daniel nodded. "You can drop him here anytime. He'll be safe. And I'll help with anything else." Maria's shoulders relaxed slightly, and she whispered, "Thank you." That night, Daniel walked them back home with an umbrella, making sure they reached safely. Leo held Daniel's hand the entire way, his small fingers gripping tightly, as if afraid to let go. When they reached the door, Maria turned to Daniel. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." "You don't have to," Daniel said softly. "Just take care of yourself and Leo." She nodded, and Daniel walked back to the ranch with a heavy heart. He had seen fear before, in many people, but seeing it in Maria shook him deeply. He wanted to help, he needed to help. The next morning, Maria left early to search for a job, leaving Leo with Daniel. The little boy tried to act brave, but Daniel could sense his worry. Will Mama be okay? Leo asked quietly as he fed the chickens. Daniel knelt beside him. Your mama is strong. She'll be okay. And until she finds work, I'm here. You're not alone. Leo nodded, but Daniel could tell the boy was carrying more weight than any child should. Later that week, another problem appeared, one that made everything even harder. Maria came to the ranch one afternoon, her face full of panic. Daniel, she said breathlessly, the landlord is raising the rent next month. I can't afford it without a job. I don't know what to do. Daniel felt something sharp tighten in his chest. Did he give any reason? He said the prices in the area are going up, she said. He gave me 2 weeks to decide. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to find a job, earn enough, and keep a roof over Leo's head. It felt impossible. Maria looked down at her hands. If I can't manage it, we might have to move to another town. A small place far from here. But Leo, he's so happy here. He loves coming to the ranch. I don't want to take him away. Daniel felt a sudden fear. The thought of losing them, losing Leo's laughter and Maria's warm presence, hit him like a punch. He wanted to tell her to stay. He wanted to solve everything in one moment. But he forced himself to think clearly. You won't move, Daniel said after a long pause. You don't have to. Maria looked at him, confused. What do you mean? Daniel took a deep breath. Stay here. Maria blinked. Here? In your house? You and Leo, he said gently. There's plenty of room. You won't have to worry about rent. You can stay until things get better. Maria stared at him. Stunned. Daniel. That's too much. I can't accept that. People might misunderstand. And you barely know us. Daniel shook his head. I know enough. I know you're a good mother. I know Leo feels safe here. And I know I don't want to see you struggling alone. Tears filled Maria's eyes. Daniel. We can't impose. You're not imposing, he said. You're family. The moment he said the word family, Maria looked down, her heart trembling. Family had always been a fragile word for her, something she fought to create alone. Hearing it from Daniel felt strange but comforting. I'll think about it, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Take your time. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. Over the next few days, Maria searched for work tirelessly. But the town was small, and job opportunities were few. Every evening she returned more discouraged, more exhausted, and more worried. Meanwhile, Daniel and Leo grew even closer. They fixed fences together, planted seeds, fed the horses, and took long walks around the fields. Leo followed Daniel like a shadow and talked about him constantly. Daniel, you're really strong, Leo said one morning as Daniel lifted a heavy wooden board. Daniel laughed. You'll be strong too one day. I want to be like you, Leo said proudly. Those words struck Daniel deeply. They were innocent, yet powerful. And they made Daniel realize something important. Leo already saw him as more than a friend. One evening, Maria came to the ranch after another unsuccessful job search. She looked tired and defeated. Daniel walked up to her. Any luck? She shook her head slowly. No. Everywhere I go, they say they don't need anyone right now. Daniel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Maria, you don't have to fight alone. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I've been alone for so long. Daniel, I don't know how to depend on someone. You're not depending on someone, Daniel said softly. You're letting someone help. There's a difference. Maria finally broke. Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered, I'm scared. Daniel didn't hesitate. He opened his arms, and she stepped into them, trembling. He didn't hold her tightly, just enough to let her know she wasn't alone. Leo watched from a few steps away, confused but not afraid. He walked quietly to Daniel's side and held his jacket. The three of them stood together under the fading light, sharing a moment of quiet strength. That night, Maria made her decision. She knocked gently on Daniel's door after putting Leo to sleep. Daniel, she said softly, I will accept your offer. Daniel nodded, relief and warmth filling his heart. You're welcome here, Both of you. Maria smiled through tears. Thank you. Truly. Christ. Life was about to change for all three of them. But even Daniel didn't realize yet how deep the change would be. He didn't know that he was slowly stepping into a new role, one that would require courage, patience, and love. A role that life had been preparing him for. Becoming a father. The day Maria and Leo moved into Daniel's ranch house was the beginning of a new chapter, one none of them had expected, but all three needed in different ways. The house, which once felt too big and too quiet, now carried the gentle sound of footsteps, soft laughter, and the warmth of a small family learning to grow together. Maria packed her belongings into 2 small bags and a cardboard box. She didn't have much. But Daniel didn't care about that. What mattered was that she and Leo were safe, comfortable, and no longer living under the pressure of losing their home. When Daniel helped them move, Leo clung to him excitedly. "This is going to be our house too?" he asked, eyes shining. Daniel smiled. "Yes, for as long as you need." Leo grinned widely, as if Daniel had handed him the whole world. Inside the ranch house, Maria walked through each room slowly. She touched the walls, looked at the windows, and breathed gently. It had been years since she felt the comfort of a place that allowed her to relax. She turned toward Daniel with soft eyes. "Thank you. I don't think you know how much this means to us." Daniel gave a small nod. "Just make yourselves at home." Over the next few days, they settled into a routine that felt strangely natural. Leo woke up early and ran into Daniel's room almost every morning. "Good morning," he would say cheerfully, bringing an energy the house had never known. Daniel would smile sleepily and let the boy pull him out for breakfast. Maria cooked with quiet confidence. She wasn't used to a full kitchen, but she enjoyed preparing meals for all of them. The aroma of warm food filled the house each day: fresh bread, vegetable soup, rice dishes, and sometimes something sweet when she had enough ingredients. Daniel found himself looking forward to mealtimes, not because of the food, but because of the conversation and laughter that came with them. Maria would talk about her day. Daniel would listen patiently, and Leo would share stories about his imaginary adventures around the ranch. It felt like a family, not forced, not rushed, but forming naturally, softly. But life was still life, and soon new challenges appeared, testing their bond again. Maria began looking for work in the nearby towns. She traveled long distances, sometimes leaving early in the morning and returning late in the evening. Daniel watched her tire herself out and worried quietly. One day, she came home looking extremely exhausted. She placed her bag on the table and sank into a chair. "No luck again?" Daniel asked gently. Maria shook her head, rubbing her forehead. "They say they'll call me back. But no one does. Some places aren't hiring. Some want full-time workers. And I don't want to leave Leo alone every day." Daniel sat across from her. "You're trying your best," Maria sighed. "Sometimes I wish my best was enough." Daniel looked at her with a steady calm. "It is enough, Maria. You've raised Leo with so much strength. That alone proves it." Maria looked at him, her eyes softening. She appreciated his quiet confidence, something she never had in her life before. But the real turning point came unexpectedly. One afternoon, a local man named Mr. Harris came to the ranch. He owned several small businesses in the nearby town and knew Maria was looking for work. He stepped out of his truck and waved. "Daniel, heard you've been helping Maria and her boy." Daniel nodded politely. "They're good people," Harris smiled. "I know. I came to offer Maria a job. Part-time work at my general store. Cleaning, organizing, helping customers. She can bring Leo if needed." When Maria heard the news, her eyes filled with happy tears. "Are you sure?" she asked in disbelief. "I won't let you down." "You won't," Harris said warmly. "You're hardworking. I've seen it." For the first time in weeks, Maria had a real chance, a step forward toward stability. The next day she started working, and soon she settled into the job comfortably. Daniel could see her confidence slowly returning. She walked straighter, smiled more easily, and spoke with more certainty. During her work hours, Leo stayed with Daniel at the ranch. They grew closer day by day. Leo followed Daniel everywhere, into the barn, around the fields. To the workshop. One morning, while fixing a fence, Leo said something that stopped Daniel in his tracks. "Daniel?" Leo asked, holding a small wooden hammer. "Yes, buddy? Are you, like my second father now?" Daniel froze. His hand paused mid-air, the tool slipping slightly. He turned slowly to face the boy. "Why do you ask that?" Daniel said gently. Leo shrugged, looking down at his shoes. "Because you take care of us. And you teach me things. And when I'm scared, I feel safe with you. Isn't that what fathers do?" Daniel felt something deep stir inside him, something warm, heavy, and tender. He knelt down in front of Leo. "Well," Daniel said quietly, "I don't know if I'm a father, but I care about you a lot. More than you know." Leo nodded thoughtfully, and then smiled. "I think that's the same thing." Daniel couldn't argue. Instead, he gently ruffled the boy's hair and continued working, though his mind was full of emotions he had never experienced so powerfully before. That evening, Daniel told Maria what Leo had said. She listened silently, her hands resting on the kitchen counter. She looked down, blinking back tears. "He's never said anything like that before," she whispered. "You've become someone very important to him, Daniel." Daniel swallowed, surprised by the weight of her words. "He's important to me too." Maria looked up, her eyes warm and sincere. "And so am I." Those words hung between them like a soft, unspoken promise. Weeks passed, and their small family grew stronger. They shared meals, laughter, responsibilities, and quiet moments that formed invisible threads tying their lives together. They celebrated small victories like Maria's first paycheck, Leo learning how to ride a small pony without fear, and Daniel finishing repairs that had been waiting for months. One weekend, Maria suggested a picnic on the hill behind the ranch. Daniel packed sandwiches, Leo carried a basket of fruit, and Maria brought a blanket. They climbed up the slope together, the wind brushing gently against their faces. When they reached the top, the view took their breath away. The fields stretched across the land like a green ocean, the sky bright and clear above them. They sat together, eating and laughing. At one point, Leo ran around chasing butterflies while Daniel and Maria sat quietly side by side. Maria looked at the horizon, and then at Daniel. "I never believed life could feel peaceful again." Daniel turned to her. "It can be. You just needed the right place." She shook her head softly. "Not just the place. The right person." Daniel didn't say anything at first. He simply looked at her, understanding the depth of her words. Slowly, gently, their hands touched, resting together on the blanket. Nothing hurried, nothing forced, just meant to be. When the sun began to set, Leo ran back to them and curled up between their arms, sleepy and content. Daniel wrapped his arm around both of them instinctively. Maria rested her head on his shoulder. At that moment, Daniel realized something clearly. They were a family. Not by blood, not by paper, but by choice, and by love that had grown quietly, steadily, without fear. The following months only made their bond stronger. Maria became stable in her job. Leo flourished happier, braver, more confident. Daniel felt more alive than he ever had before. He wasn't just fixing the ranch anymore. He was building a life. One evening, as they stood outside watching the sunset, Maria turned to Daniel and said softly, "You changed our world." Daniel shook his head. "You changed mine first." Maria smiled, and Leo hugged both of them at once. Daniel lifted the boy into his arms, and Maria wrapped her hand around Daniel's. The ranch, once silent and lonely, had become a home filled with warmth, laughter, and hope. Daniel had not just bought a ranch, he had found a family, and without planning it, without expecting it, he had stepped into the role of a father with a heart full of love and a future full of promise.